Hey there YouTube world, Matt Schwartz of Welding Geek here. On this episode of the Welding Geek, we got part 2 of the Mandalorian's rifle build here. So if you want to see me kind of complete the fabrication of this, stay tuned to the video. Alright, the first thing I'm going to start off with here is making the little nose piece that the fork attaches to. And this is a whole machine part. So I'm going to go ahead and get this all machined out. And then we will move on from here. Alright, next up here I've got my fork templates. You can see here I've got 3 templates. The middle one, the core of it, is going to be cut out of 1/8 inch. And these other 2 templates are going to be cut out of 0.63 or 1/16 inch aluminum. And I'm going to go ahead and get these all sheared out and get them relieved out of the material. And then I'll get to welding the fork together. Alright, now that I have my pieces all cut out, cleaned up, I'm going to go ahead and fit this core fork part to my little end part here. You can see I got a little slot cut in there. I'm going to go ahead and file this out, get it cleaned up, and get it put on and welded. And just like that, I've got myself a tuning fork. Now I'm going to go ahead and get the outer skins bent up. It's just a simple bend here on this bend line. There's 4 pieces. I'm going to get them bent up, and then we'll make our way back over to the table and get them stitched into place. Now I'm going to go ahead and smooth out all these welds to make it look like one fork piece, no welds. Now that I've got my fork all dressed down, I cut myself 2 pieces of tubing here. I've got a piece of inch 058 wall aluminum tubing and a piece of 7/8 050 wall tubing. I've machined this so the fork fits on the inside here. The 7/8 piece is to slot into another piece on the receiver there. And I'm going to go ahead and do what's called a rosette weld on both ends of this and just dress them off. A rosette weld's just this little round weld here. It's just meant to hold that into place. Now I'm going to go ahead and make the piece that welds on the fork that receives the other smaller tube that goes below the barrel. And this just has a couple bends in it, 2 on either side here and then 1 on the end, and then I'll weld this together to make one piece. Now that I've got that piece all bent up, I'm going to work on what would be an octagon piece, I think. This is another little feature of the end of the barrel, and I'm going to go ahead and just bend these up. It will make an octagon. I think it's octagon, hexagon, or one of the gons. It's a gon for sure. But yeah, this is another feature that goes on the end of the barrel, and this is what it looks like now that I got it all bent up. Now I'm going to go ahead and weld up the pieces that I just bent up, both the octagon piece and the other, I don't even know what to call it, the little piece that holds the little tube on the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and get this piece lined up and get it welded both the top and bottom, and then weld up the other little piece, get it dressed, making it look like one part, and then get it welded on as well. Alright, now that I got that welded into place, I hope it makes a little more sense. Next up, I'm going to make the wooden pieces that go on just like it's like a grip, I believe. And I'm just going to use my calipers, measure these out, cut them out on the bandsaw, and then I'm going to go ahead and put a 1-inch hole all the way through them. While I was trying to drill these holes all the way through, my camera died. So I only got part of that, but you'll see what it ended up looking like here in a few. Camera's about to die right about there. Anyway, you'll see what that part looks like here in a minute. These two pieces there's a ring that goes in between the two wooden pieces that I was working on, and another ring that goes on the barrel, and these support the lower smaller tube that's below the barrel. I don't know what to call it, but that's what I'm making. Now that I got all my holes drilled, I'm going to take it over to the bandsaw and get these pieces relieved out of the material here. Now that I got them cut out, I'm going to go ahead and hit them on the belt sander here to take these little edges off. And I'll get over to my table and smooth them out with my angle head sander. Alright, now it's time to get these things kind of assembled on here. Here's one of those wooden pieces that I was working on. You can see how they came out after getting the hole drilled. And I'm just going to go ahead and piece this thing together, get everything fit up. Now that I have those rings kind of in place, I'm going to go ahead and weave this stainless tube in them. This is that lower tube. And then I'm going to kind of locate the square one and get it tacked into place so it doesn't rotate on me. I've put a little chamfer on this wood part so it'll kind of mold around where the weld's at so it doesn't kind of have a gap against it in that little square ring. Just like that. Now it's time to test the fit up. See if everything kind of goes together, and wouldn't you know it, it does. Looks like we're getting somewhere. Next up, we got the scope mount. I'm going to go ahead and cut this tube in half. These are going to be my two little yoke pieces that will mount the scope to the rifle. For the scope mount we got here, we got our two yoke pieces. This is the piece that will go on the barrel that I've already turned. And then I have two pieces of 1/2 inch flat stock that I've cut to a dimension. And I'm just going to weld those together. And then the yoke will get welded on top of that. Like so. And then the other one will just get the piece of flat stock welded to the yoke, not with another. Just like this. How about that? Pictures are better than words. Now that I have the scope mounts all dressed down and ready to go, I'm going to weld this one to the rifle here. And I've got my barrel one on there, and I'm just using this piece of 7/8 tubing to line them up to make sure it lines up nice and tidy. Just like that, scope mounts welded to the receiver. Next up, we got the scope. I already have my pieces turned. I figured we've already seen a lot of lathe work, so I went ahead and got my pieces kind of turned out. This is a piece of 7/8 aluminum tube. It's a piece of inch 058 aluminum tube that I just turned a little bit off to give it the look that it needs. And this is another piece of inch aluminum tube that I just put a couple little features on. And I'm going to weld this all together, and this will be our scope. And just like that, we've got the Mando scope. All right. Alright, time to make the buttstock. Last step. I'm going to go ahead and do this in layers. So I've got 1/4 inch plywood and 1/8 inch plywood. 6 separate templates that all layer together to make the buttstock. So let's go ahead and get that accomplished here. As you can see here, I'm going ahead and get everything cut out on the bandsaw first. And then we'll make my way over to the table and I will put the little pinholes in. Now that I got the pinholes in, I'm gonna go ahead and make sure everything fits together correctly. The pins will slide through the receiver and the buttstock ends here. I'm gonna go ahead and do a pre-fit, just making sure everything's all sitting nice and cleanly before I go and glue it all together. The pins I'm using are just bolts that I cut off, ground off, so if you need to do that, pretty easy. Anyway, it's time to get gluing. I'm gonna go ahead and start layering up my separate layers here, and get everything, a lot of glue so you know there's 100% contact, and just stack up my layers bit by bit, and then it's to the clamps, and just clamp everything down with as many clamps as you can get on it and make it as straight as possible. Alright, we have ourselves a clamp sandwich. Get the clamps off, and now you can see kind of the layers here, how I built it up. And now it's time to get it all cleaned up. I'm gonna go ahead and get the bolts cut off and ground down, and then it's time to smooth everything out. I'm using my Dynabrade here with some, I think it's 220 grit sandpaper, just trying to level everything out, get the glue off, and make it look pretty to start so I can start forming it. I found the nice thing about doing the layers is it keeps you on track from being in center from left to right as you're grinding down into this. What I did was just grind off the first layer, that 1/8 inch layer, because it really only needed to be on the handle, and then you just start cutting down into the other layers, and it just kind of keeps you on track. I'm gonna go ahead and use a DA in that same Dynabrade tool to radius off the edges and just kind of get this thing formed. You can see this is about half of it here. Not fully finished, but what I'm trying to accomplish, and you can see the layers keeping me on track. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the other side, and then I will kind of do the final fit and finish, get it smoothed out with some hand sandpaper, and just make it look nice and neat. Symmetry is what we're looking for, and I feel like I'm right on track, so I'm gonna keep on going a little bit and get it all smoothed out and get the finer details in there, get it nice and clean. Alright, I'm really happy with how this came out. I wish I would have made it maybe an inch longer or two, but hey, not too bad. We've got one more detail to finish before this rifle build is done, and then there's a little like butt cap made out of aluminum, so I went ahead and got it made out here. I'm just gonna form it by hand, and I've got 3 like screws, and I'm just gonna screw it into the buttstock, and that's gonna be like the last little kind of finishing detail. Alright, it's time to kind of piece everything together and see what we got. this thing feels good in the hands. I'm gonna make somebody really happy, whoever wins this. This thing is awesome. Here's a little rotisserie action with the funny cars in the back. Oh yeah, looking good.
And alright, friends, that is the completion of the fabrication of the Mandalorian Am-Bam Phase Pulse Blaster Rifle Thingy-Mabob. Anyway, hope you enjoyed that video. Kind of went through that one pretty quick. It'll be one more video on paint once I figure out how I'm going to paint this thing. And then after the paint video, like I said, I'm going to give this away to one of those folks that are in my $10 Patreon tier. So if you want your chance to possibly own this thing, head on over there and jump in that tier. Also, the templates for this rifle will be available at the $5 tier and $10 tier. And then the templates for all the rest of my builds will be available on my Patreon page. So if you're interested in making some of this stuff out of foam, these templates will not just only in metal, but foam or whatever else you can think of. My templates will work for that stuff. So if you want to give yourself or try it yourself, head on over there and you'll have access to that stuff. And you get to support my channel so I can build more cool stuff like this. So like I said, paint video will be next. And then, sneak peek, people, it will be the Beskar spear out of titanium. A little sneak preview. So you can be looking forward to that. Check this out. Are you ready? That's titanium for you. Still going. I just love that so much. One more time. Get close to the microphone. How cool is that? Anyway, I hope you guys stay tuned. You're enjoying my channel. Please subscribe if you want to see more of my content and like my videos. It helps the channel out a bunch. And yeah, hopefully we'll have more cool builds like this coming up in the near future. So yeah, stay tuned. Thanks again. My name's Matt Schwartz. I'm the Welding Geek, and here's for more.